Hi, it's Pastor Chris popping in with a quick reminder that if you like this video, it would be a huge help if you could share it with your friends. That will help more people see this video and find our other videos and hear the good news of Jesus Christ and get to know our community here in DeWitt a little bit better and maybe even find a community for themselves. So thank you very much for sharing what we've made here with the people who you know and love. And now, on with the video. In our reading today, we are still in that part of Matthew that we call the Sermon on the Mount. We're still in this extended section where Jesus, the one in whom the most divine of divinity and the most human of humanity meet, the one in whom holiness and brokenness meet. And Jesus is saying things about worship. And that can be a little hard for us to see because we are used to thinking about worship as this special thing that we do in a special room, in a special building, wearing special clothes, during a special hour or so on Sunday morning, every week, or every few weeks, or once a month, or once every couple of months, or once every so often. But worship is so much bigger than this thing that we do here. Worship is all of the stuff that we do, that anyone does, to say to a person or an idea or a political system or an economic system or a cultural identity or an ideology or anything, to say to whatever that is, I am on your team, and you are the captain, and I will follow wherever you lead me. So for us, that means saying, Jesus, I am on your team. You are my captain, and I will follow wherever you lead me. Or to put that in kind of ancient language, it's all the stuff that we do that says Christ is Lord, and we are his people. And if you were here for last week's sermon or watched last week's sermon or remember last week's sermon, this is kind of what I was getting into by talking about taking up space in the world, right? If worship is all of the stuff that we do that says to Jesus, I'm on your team, and you are my captain, and I will follow wherever you lead me, then it is all the stuff we do that says that in here and out there. In business and in school, and when we're at a restaurant, and when we're voting, and when we're talking to people about things going on in the world, and when we buy stuff, when we talk, when we have relationships, all of those things are forms of worship because they say to someone, I'm on your team. You are the captain, and I will follow wherever you lead me. So Jesus is talking about worship. And Jesus mentions three specific things that to his audience are forms of worship that they do all the time and everywhere. He mentions sharing our abundance with those who are in need. He mentions prayer. He mentions fasting. And to his audience, to much of his audience, worship means saying to God, the God who led them out of captivity in Egypt, the God who led them out of the house of slavery, the God who has seen them through, following the law. And the law that they have, the thing that makes them Jewish, includes ways of sharing their abundance with those in need, and ways of praying, and ways of fasting. And some of those can be done in secret. And Jesus is saying, when you give, do it in secret. When you pray, do it in secret. When you fast, do it in secret. There are ways of doing each of those in secret, but we run into a problem really quick because sometimes they can't be done in secret. The law has ways of giving to those who are in need, and some of those are just straight up public. You cannot avoid being seen. The law has ways of praying. When you get up and when you lie down, when you break bread and when you pour wine, before and after every part of life, and some of those can be done in secret, but not all of them. And the law has ways of fasting, but it also has times of fasting. And it's hard to fast in secret when everyone is fasting. So we've got a little bit of a problem with what Jesus is saying, because we can't always do these things in secret. But here is the trick. There is a lot of space between doing things in secret and doing things for the sake of being seen by other people. There is a lot of space between always very carefully putting a few coins in someone's hand so that no one can see, and sounding trumpets so that everyone knows what you're doing. There is a lot of space between praying in your closet where no one can see you and standing on a street corner using the most eloquent words you have available and your loud outside performance voice so that everyone knows that you're praying. And there is a lot of space between fasting in secret, making sure you've got a happy face on and oil on your face and are all clean and nice and don't look like you're fasting. There's a lot of space between that and looking as dour and solemn and hungry as possible so that everybody knows that you are fasting and that you have gone past peckish and past hungry to famished. What Jesus is getting at is that when we worship, when we have that big worship that is in everywhere, that is in every part of our life, when that is a normal thing, there can be this temptation to make sure that everyone sees us and everyone knows and everyone can look at us and go, oh my, look at how religious that person is. Look at how holy that person is. Look at how wonderful that person is. And there is a danger when we do that, when we get caught up in that it will no longer be saying to God, I am on your team. You are the captain. I will lead wherever you will follow. And it can fall into saying to the crowd who can see us, I am on your team, you are my captain, and I will follow wherever you lead me. That can also really happen in here. It can be easy to look at how we gather here for this little version of worship and start looking out there and go, how do we find the way to let everybody know that we are on their team and they are the captain and we'll follow where they lead us so that this will be perfect for everyone who wants it? How do we find all of the little bits that will be popular, that people will really like? How do we have the best music? How do we have the fanciest organ? How do we have the biggest choir? How do we make sure to mix up the music so we've got all the classic stuff that people like, all those nice old hymns, and we have the new stuff that people like. So we also have the big drum set and the electric guitars and the light show. How do we have the most comfortable seating? Barca loungers all the way back. How do we have the hippest, coolest, most popular preacher who always brings in the most relevant stories and always packages the gospel so that it's a little uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable? How do we do all of the things so that we have the biggest show? But the thing is, this is not about the show. This little worship, this thing that we do kind of special, is not about a show. It is about making that connection to God, to Christ, to love, so that we can go out and worship in a big way, in everything that we do. This is the preparation for that. And that means that it's important that this not be a show, that this not be pretend, that this not be giving for the sake of being seen giving, that this not be praying for the sake of being heard praying, that this not be fasting for the sake of being seen fasting. This is meant to be honest. To be us standing in front of God, asking God to fill us with Spirit so that we might go out and worship in everything that we do. So the question in front of us, if we want to take Jesus' words seriously here, if we want to listen to the one in whom the most divine divinity and the most human humanity meet, if we want to listen to the one in whom holiness and brokenness meet, the question in front of us is, how do we take off the show? How do we pare down the show? How do we drop the performance so that we can stand honestly before God, being filled with the Spirit so that we can go out and let our light shine as naturally as possible? Not pretending, not acting, not trying to be big, but just being instruments of God's love in the world.